I am not pinning this. So I'm going to change this out to the walking foot. If you don't have a walking foot, you can use a piece of paper underneath it to make it slide. If you don't have a walking foot and you don't use pins or clips or something to hold the POL straight, what you'll end up with is you'll have it together on one end, and it will pull the bottom piece that way with the feed dogs, and it'll pull the top piece, stretch it, and so by the time you get to this end down here, you'll have it like that. It'll be way too long on the top because it's stretched, and it will be ripply along the way as well. So you don't want to stretch that top piece. In order to prevent the stretching, I'm going to use a walking foot. You can pin it if you don't have one. I like to start with the longest run just because it stabilizes the material. Oh, my stitches are way too short. There we go. My walking foot is not attached properly. Why didn't somebody stop me? Alright. And I can tell because the stitches felt very forced, stretched, I don't know, short. It just didn't feel like it was moving. That's better. Much, much better. Leave that needle in there. Lift your foot to make the turn. Lower the foot back down. Take a drive. This backhand back here is just turning. I'm just using it to turn. I want to turn fluidly, so I like to grab a hold of it in the front and in the back. Very, very close to the snaps on this newborn diaper. Like my walking foot was pretty much just rubbing up against the snaps. All the way around, one shot. Just like that. Make that last turn. Next step is to mark for our, I'm going to reinforce this corner just a little bit. Okay. Cut our threads, mark for our snaps, cut our corners. Let's go back to the cutting table. Okay, so I haven't cut the threads yet. Usually I do that before I get back on, but You'll be fine for a few seconds, right? Oh, I cut these threads. All right. Now this time, I'm tired of not having marks on both sides of my diaper. Let's... Okay. So I'm going to line it up side to side and mark with a regular ink pen on the shiny side of the PUL where my elastics go. And now I'm lining it up top to bottom, but I'm going to slide the pattern that direction and mark for those elastics. Same thing, line it up top to bottom, but slide the pattern that direction. Mark for my elastics. I'm officially done with that pattern. Alright, so I like to transfer the marks to the inside. All of these videos seem to be about the same, guys. I promise when I'm done with this 7-day challenge, you'll see me make some more interesting things. I just want this nephew of mine to get enough diapers. Also, tomorrow, I'm going to take a slight break from the challenge and make a whole bunch of one-size covers for a different nephew. His mom is coming over and we are going to have a sewing day. So we're going to see how many diapers we can sew in one day. Should be fun. I'm not going to videotape every single diaper, but I think I'll record a handful of some things. I'm cutting the corners now. I like to get about 1/8 of an inch away from the stitching. And I cut anywhere there is an outside turn. Anywhere that there is a left turn. No. Yeah, because this would be a right turn. And so you don't need to cut on any right turns, just left turns. That's actually a brilliant way to describe it. Didn't think about it before. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Alright, more left turns coming here. Cut the left turn here. Oh, I suppose it's only a left turn if you're going counterclockwise. Darn. I just had to make it more complicated. Alright, done cutting the corners. Don't cut any inside turns, just outside turns. Next step is to turn this right side out and sew for our elastic casings. You're turning it out what feels like a sock. Just turn that sock inside out, right side out. Pretty color. Alright, we have T-shirt red on one side. It has little bubbles. I don't even know if you could see that on the film. But that's just because of the glue. They say that will wash out, so I'm going to trust them. It's not even holding very well because rubbing on it moves it, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. I think it's going to wash out just fine. So we're going to sew along this here, here, and across the back. Just from the mark to the mark, we're not going to close the ends because we need to feed the elastic through. I'll show you what I mean. I no longer need my walking foot. You can go back to plain Jane here. Alright, so just take one of these marks that you just made. Start at one of the marks. You'll want to start you'll want to stay a little wider than the elastic. Sorry, I can't think of words today. Stay a little bit wider than the elastic. So I'm going to go about a 1/2 inch. My elastic is 3/8 inch. Always back stitch at each end. The back stitching locks in the threads so that when you go to put in your elastic, you're not pulling the casing open further. Alright, I went forward and backward, and now I can gung-ho it to the other end. I'm going to stay on that second line on my plate because that is about a 1/2 inch for me. Every sewing machine will be different, so the second line may be really, really small for you because you may have them really close together. So don't go just by the second line. Measure it out or something. Make sure that you're staying wider than the elastic. Alright. So now my casing is in. It looks like my sewing machine kind of tried to mess up the end of this elastic, or the end of this thread here, but I think it's going to cut out okay. I like to pull as many of the loops flat as I can and then cut them off. So that didn't do too bad. My machine kind of messes up often. It's old. Hopefully you have a better one than I do. Alright. Let's do the next one. So this, as you can see, this is very curly right here. You'll want to push that seam out as far as you can. In order to do that, I pinch the two pieces of fabric with my fingers and I just kind of rub them back and forth until that seam comes out. You can actually see the threads in there. Can you see that? So as I go across, I'm going to rub those out. Start on that second line. The second line on the plate, but the line that I drew also. So intersection there. Alright. I'll rub on that. Rub that seam out. That trick of rubbing that seam out works if you have a pocket or an all-in-one. It's pretty much good for all seams. It especially works on the PUL because the PUL is slippery on the inside. Flip. One more. I like to sew on the white side. I think it's just personal preference. I can't imagine it would make much of a difference if you chose to sew on the colored side. I tell you what, my machine does not like to keep that bobbin thread straight sometimes, and so it would probably benefit me if I chose to sew on the other side, because then my squirrely bobbin thread would be on the wrong side of the diaper rather than the outside. But I feel like it's easier for me to see what I'm doing if I'm using the white side, and I almost always use white PUL. I do have some prints and some colors, not many though. I prefer to buy the cheaper white and pretty it up myself with free t-shirts and things. Alright, 3 elastic casings are in. It is now time for us to insert our elastic. See that? 1, 2, and 3. Alright, last night I used the bodkin for the first time. I'm actually not a fan. So I'm a fan of the bodkin. The diaper is so little. The bodkin just simply does not have enough room. It's a very long tool. And so I'm going to set that aside and get my handy dandy one and only safety pin. I mentioned on Facebook earlier today that it's probably a good thing that I only own one safety pin, because I seem to leave it in every diaper I make. And so if I only own one and I go to make another diaper, then when I can't find my safety pin, I know, hey, you left it in that last diaper, so I just go find that last diaper. By the way, diapers number 1 through 4 are officially with their new owner. I delivered them today. I didn't wait for all 7 diapers before giving them to her, so you can't see them unless you go back and view those other videos. Sorry. I was going to line them all up after the challenge, but I think it was more important that they have diapers. So what I did, what you saw me do there, is I stretched the elastic from end to end, and then I sort of gave it a little bit of slack and cut that off. And then I stretched another piece and cut it off exactly the same. That's going to make our 2 leg holes similar. And I say similar, not exactly the same, because it will depend on how you sew it, whether or not they're exactly the same. So you stick that, put that elastic onto the safety pin and feed the safety pin through the channel. And then when your elastic is just about 1/4 of an inch or so away from the line that you drew, tack it down. I like to go forward and backward twice, and that's it. If you do too much, you won't be able to replace elastics later. Although I'm not too worried about that. I would pretty much just remake the diaper. As quick as these are for me, I would probably remake the diaper. But in case somebody, someday, whoever owns this diaper, wants to replace the elastics, it'll be fairly easy for them to do so with less stitches. If you put just 1 row, there is risk that it will come loose, so you don't want to underdo it either. Alright, now that that is sewn in there on that end, I'm going to keep feeding this elastic through. It's going to get bunched up as I feed it through, which is exactly what we want it to do. Just kind of scrunch the fabric onto the safety pin and then pull it. Hopefully you can see by this demonstration. If not, there's, 6 other videos that show the same thing. Alright. Back and forth, and we're done. Sorry, there we go. Sewing machine was trying to hang on to my thread. Now what you want is you want it to be as tight as it can be and still completely straighten the fabric. So I just barely straighten the fabric all the way, which is what I wanted. It's perfect. Let's move to the next one. So, oh, I left the safety pin in there. Go fish your safety pin out. I swear, having only one safety pin is so good for me. There would be a safety pin in every diaper if I had that many safety pins. Feed that up in there. Scrunch, scrunch, pull. Scrunch, scrunch, pull. I'm cutting the threads as I go this time. I change it up just however I feel. If you throw your threads on the floor like I do, pick them up before vacuuming. You don't want that caught in the rollers of your vacuum. You could suck them up with a hose before you use the rollers. That would work. I usually just run my fingers across the carpet and pick them up. It's not really that hard. It's like I use my fingers as a comb. I just comb the carpet real quick before I start the vacuum. That's simple. Okay. I have done this so that I've accidentally sewn over a safety pin. If you do that, the safety pin gets locked in there and you have to undo the stitching. I actually saw a friend do that as well, so don't make that mistake. Get your safety pin out of the way before you sew it down. It's better to just make your elastic a little bit longer so you don't have to worry about it, and get your safety pin way out of the way. Perfect. And I like to bend this in half just to make sure that my two pieces of elastic are fairly the same length. And one is just a slight bit longer than the other, but not much. Let's do the back. I'm actually going to top stitch this diaper this time. Yesterday's diaper did not get top stitched, but it was fuzzy. The fuzzy diapers, I don't even think you can see the top stitching. And if you can, you don't see it that well. So I just decided not to top stitch the fuzzy ones. I did that on 2 of them this week. First 2 diapers I haven't top stitched was those. Oh yeah, my safety pin. Where is it? There it is. Every time. Leave that safety pin in there. I hope you ladies don't mind that you can never see my face. I just don't feel comfortable putting my face on YouTube, so hope that's alright. Just my voice. Wow, I think this is the longest video I've made so far. 24 minutes and counting. I've shown you this step before. Maybe I don't have to make the video that long. Just skip ahead. I can't skip ahead, of course. I have to actually do the work. Bummer. My phone does not tell me what time it is while it's recording, so I have no idea how late it's getting. You know, these only take me an hour to an hour and a half, depending on if I already have it cut out or if I'm top stitching it. Pretty easy to do. Go get my safety pin this time. I grew up sewing. I have like 25 years experience sewing. Just one of those things my mom always did growing up. Make some extra cash because she was a work-at-home mom, stay-at-home mom. Alright, let's start a new video and get to top stitching.